Hello everyone and welcome back to another photography review show. I hope you all had a great week and I hope you're ready for more photography fun. Now, if you've never been here before, my name is Jakub and I'm a professional photographer based in West Sussex, England. Now, what I do every week, I meet here for the past 2 or 3 years and I review your photos. What we do, usually we look at the technical part of the image. This is where we look at things like exposure, sharpness, noise, camera settings, and so on to help you to see if there are any ways you can improve that part of the skill. After that, we look at the artistic part of the image. This is where we look at things like composition, storytelling, framing, and everything to do with that visual impact of the image. And finally, if we have an extra time, what we do, we try to give you some tips and tricks on how to edit your photos, especially if I think that there is maybe a way to make a little bit more impact. I try to share it with you through Luminar Neo. However, if you don't have Luminar Neo, don't worry. Most of the editing I do here can be done in any other similar photo editing application. So this is what we do. Now, how can you join us? In the future, if you want to join us, the easiest way to do this is to head to our website, cleverphotographer.com/membership, and there sign up to our Clever Photographer Plus membership. By doing that, it has multiple advantages. One, you will get a monthly bundle full of incredible photography assets, everything including Lightroom, Photoshop, and Luminar Neo presets, overlays, textures, backgrounds, LUTs, Photoshop actions, custom brushes for Photoshop, and other editing photo software. So much editing tools that you will get every month. And on the top of it, it's always wrapped in a certain style or photography style, something like portrait photography, festive photography, just like this month, or wildlife photography last month. So that's the main important thing. Number 2, you will get access to our Clever Photographer Academy, which is a Facebook group where we all meet and talk about photos. And finally, you also get access to this photography review show where you can send your images and I give you my feedback on what I think that you could still improve. So A, you know what we're doing, and B, you know how to join us with your own images in the future. So today, actually, this episode is pre-recorded, and the reason being is that I'm away on Tuesday. It was a kind of last-minute decision, so I'm not able to be here live. So I've decided that I will take the images I have, record this short show, and then I will take all the images I have, bring them together, and next week, which will be the last show of the month, let's have a look at the calendar if I can see it. Next week on 19th of December, we will meet, we will review all your images, we will talk a little bit more about festive photography, and just end the photography year with that show on the 19th of December. So if you're around, come and join us, 19th of December, 6 p.m. UK time, live on YouTube, our Facebook group, and also our Clever Photographer Academy. It will be lots of fun, and if I don't review your images today, I will review them there on the 19th of December. Still, as I promised, we have a few images to go through, so let's jump straight to it. So today we have 2 photographers, we have David and Tony. So let's go straight into it and start by looking at the landscape captures from David. David, I had a look at your images and I have to say I love them. They are beautiful. Beautiful 2 captures, obviously both of them capturing lighthouse, both in different ways, and I think they are great. First one, this one, more kind of daylight, moody capture with little bit of shift of the colors. And I have to say, I quite like it. I think it looks very cinematic. It looks very, very nice. And my first impression of the image is that I like it. Then we look at the technical part, and let's do that by looking at the camera details first. So, captured with Nikon Z6 Mark II with the Nikon lens 24 to 70 millimeters. After that, when it comes to camera settings, ISO 100, 70 millimeters f5, and 1/2500th of a second. So when it comes to camera settings and landscape photography, as much as we can, the goal is to keep the ISO as low as possible, just like on this image, 100, perfectly fine. The reason is that we try to avoid any additional digital noise, and the 100 is perfect. F5 in a combination with 2500 of a second. Yeah, it looks all good. I mean, with that kind of wider view, generally, the depth will be good anyway. Plus, there is not really an immediate foreground element close to the camera. So everything looks good and sharp to me. On the top of it, with the 2500 of a second, it gives you nice, very sharp image, which almost looks like you kind of freeze the time. The clouds there, the light, everything looks very, very good. And I think the image looks great. So David, lovely. All good with the camera settings. So let's just quickly zoom in, double check the sharpness, which is spot on. Level of noise, looking more into the shadows. There is a touch of it, but absolutely nothing crazy. And if anything, it just adds a little bit of that kind of vintage feel and cinematic feel to the image. So I think that is all good. So let's move to the artistic part, what I think about the image when it comes to storytelling and the composition. And I think it all works very well, actually. There is lots of really good things here. Obviously, the clear focal point as being the lighthouse, which is clearly visible. When you look at it, you immediately know what you're trying to show us, which I think is really important. You can't imagine how many times I get an image, and even though there is lots of things right on it, you can't really say what the photographer is trying to show, and it's the opposite on your image. It's clear focal point right there, which I think works very, very well. I really like a little bit of the reflection in the water. I think that's very nice too. And also I like the overall balance of the image. I quite like how the lighthouse in the center almost kind of divide the image into parts, and it really has a good balance. If you would put it on a scale, it would keep quite stable, as on each side there is nothing which is really standing out, and I think it really creates very nice visual impact. So in overall, well done, great technical skills on that, great composition, very clean, very direct, lots of impact in it for the viewer. So I think all that works very well. Finally, when it comes to the post-processing, obviously with adding that kind of green into the shadows and keeping the highlights a little bit warmer with a touch of orange there, it's not the most natural result, but I think it works really well. It's definitely one way of presenting daylight images, which sometimes can be a little bit flat or boring. Sometimes the light can be a little bit harsh, but I think this really works together. I think it's nicely combined. For personal liking, but that's only my personal thing, I think there is maybe a little bit too much of that green. I think it's on the border of being a little bit too unrealistic, but all in all, I think it's great, and I think it's a great image. I think technically, artistically, as well as the editing, all work together, and it's a great result, and definitely image that could be shared and maybe even printed and put on your wall. And at the end of the day, that is really the result we are looking for. So well done on this image right here. Now let's move on and look at the second image, which is also epic. Obviously, we are again looking at the lighthouse here with the moon behind. It does have a reflection in the water, which I think all works very well. So let's jump to it and let's talk about this image here. Now, talking about camera settings first and the gear you used. So again, it's Nikon Z6 Mark II, this time with 70 to 300 millimeters lens. After that, when it comes to camera settings, ISO 2000, 165mm, f7.1 and 1/8 of a second. So looking at the camera settings, ISO 2000, obviously blue hour, almost night scene, so perfectly fine there. F7.1, trying to get the best out of the lens, which I think specifically for this scene is quite smart decision. When it comes to low light situations, when the camera really have to try to work and get the most out of it, this is where you want to help. And one way is to get the f-stop, which is really suitable for the lens. So I think the f7.1 is a great choice. And 1/8 of a second isn't super slow, so you still get a little bit of texture in the water, but obviously it gives us quite nice exposure and quite nice light. So in overall, technically, I think it's nicely handled. Let's have a look at the sharpness and noise. Now, with the sharpness, for that type of the photo, I think is perfectly acceptable. Now, it's not as crisp sharp as the previous image would be. But again, for this time of the night, I think it's perfectly fine. The noise, yes, obviously you applied some noise reduction to it. You can see a little bit of the artifacts of it, but when you zoom out, it's not really visible. So I think that all works very well there. I think the moon is epic. I think the reflection all works there a lot. So all in all, I think it's a great picture. Well done. Technically very well put together and well captured. Now, talking about the artistic part and the framing itself. I really like it. I think it works very, very well. Obviously, it's an epic capture of the lighthouse with the moon, and I quite like the foreground here, but I'm not crazy about the foreground. I think it's a little bit extra there, and I actually think that it's a little bit distractive, and I think we have lots of extra space, which is not completely necessary for the image. So if it would be me, I would probably crop it a little bit closer to add a little bit more impact, but we can talk about that in a second. So let's talk about some of the right things. So reflection, well put there together. I also like the composition of getting the 2/3 of the sky and 1/3 of the ground. I like how you align the lighthouse on your third with the rule of third. Obviously, that all works very well. The moon is probably close to that golden point as well, so that works great. I like the depth created with this piece of land here. I think that helps just to add a depth to the image and make it a little bit more visually appealing. So all in all, I think it's a great picture and well put together. And just like this, it would be perfectly fine to share. It's in a great quality. When it comes to post-processing, I think it's nicely done. There's a lot of blue there, but obviously it's a blue color. I think it has a very natural result. Now, there are two areas which I was looking at and I was kind of trying to guess what happened there. And I'm sure you agree with me. There is this kind of white glow in this area, or bright glow, and also bright glow here. Not 100% sure what it's from, but by nature, human eyes do get attracted by brighter parts of the image. So even though, of course, initially you're looking at the lighthouse with the moon, then your eyes kind of wander away in these areas and start to wonder what happened there, why is there the brightness. So that's about it there. When it comes to post-processing, as I mentioned, I would probably crop it a little bit tighter. So let's do that. Let's use the free crop, or we can use the 16:9. That is really my favorite as well. It works very well on these kind of cinematic shots. So we can align the lighthouse and do something like this. And by doing that and by cropping in like this, I think you add a little bit more impact. You bring in the focal point and really make it all about that, which I think works a little bit better for me. After that, what I would do, I would add a gentle vignette to it with a focus on the lighthouse. So a little bit more darker areas here, and maybe just a little bit of that kind of almost Orton effect glow, but very gentle. And here in Luminar Neo, it can be done with the mystical slider. It just adds a little bit of glow around the moon and it smooths everything together. And I think when you look at it before, the moon looks very defined. It has a very sharp edge and it almost looks like it's been stick to it. So with just tiny bit of glow, which could be done technically also with just minus clarity in Lightroom or Photoshop, I think it just becomes a little bit more natural. So that's about that. Great image. In fact, great images. Well done, David. They're both great. They're great to look at and great to review. Congratulations for both of them. Obviously, you thought about how to capture it, then how to edit it and how to present it, and you can clearly see it. So, David, if you have more images in the future, make sure you send them over. I would love to review them for you. And in the meantime, if we don't talk to each other, have a great and lovely holiday season, and let's hope I can see more of your images next year. Now, moving on to the second photographer, and that's Tony. Tony, thank you for sending your images over early, so I have a chance to review them this week. If you have more for next week, please make sure that you upload them as well. I will be very happy, A, to see you next week, and to have you over for the live show, and B, obviously, to see your images. So let's jump straight to it. I tell you what, I really enjoy that almost series feel of it, like these three images together. If you would crop them around, maybe like squares, you could easily put them on an image with like a 3 square crops in it. I think that would look really cool. And similarly with the second series, I think it works very well. So I'm really happy to see how from that kind of individual images, now you're stepping also into the realm of kind of bringing things together, matching the colors, maybe the overall feel of the images. I think that is all great, and I love to see this, Tony. So well done on that. But anyway, starting from this image right here, lovely picture. Again, you know my opinion on these square crops and your photography there. I think it works really, really well. In overall, it's a lovely image. Obviously, there's a little bit of kind of dirt here and there, but that's not big deal. That's just what comes with the images. I think the crop is tiny, little bit too close for my liking. I think you're a little bit close to the edges on these parts. Just be careful there if you would ever want to print it. Think about the mount and everything. You really don't want to be completely close to the edge. So always a little bit more extra space, I think, works in overall. Good things here. I quite enjoy the light from the side. I think it helps with the structure and texture of the image. I like the color. I like how it kind of stands out. So all in all, it's a lovely, lovely picture. With the second image, I like this one a lot. I really enjoy the details. I enjoy the light, even though we have a little bit of shadows, but for example, this shadow here, I think looks really, really good. I like the overall feel. And when I look at it, it immediately makes me think of spring already and early summer. It's just kind of warm you up really. And I think it looks very, very well. I also like the fact that you're trying something else, not necessarily a square crop all the time, which I think for this picture works a lot. So this is really lovely. Love the technique, love the sharpness in the center and the kind of softer, more dreamy background. Love the light. I think it works very well with the reflection or shadow on this side. So all in all, it's a great picture. Obviously also looking into the camera settings here with the Canon 7D 18 and 235 millimeters, ISO 160, so nice and low, f8, which with 110 give you that kind of nice soft background, and 1/30th of a second give you nice light. So all works very well there. Really like that. Also really like that quite natural look to it, even though I sense a tiny bit of green haze in it, just a little bit of tint, which really we could just very quickly fix with simple develop tool and color. Here in color, we could just add little bit of tint. Now we don't want to make it pink, so we're gonna back that down. But somewhere around here, I think maybe here is right. So when we look at the slider, the tint on magenta is on 25. So you would think that we are adding pink to the image, but actually what we do, we are removing some of the green feel of the image. Now I am preparing class on how to use one of these. I hope you will be able to see it. If not, basically it's a data color spider checker photo, and it's something that you could kind of use to adjust your white balance faster. I will be teaching it on portrait photography and still photography as well. It's gonna come to our YouTube channel most likely in January. So I think maybe that could be a class that you could be interested in, and it will make adjusting the white balance much faster. Now, Tony, moving and looking at more images, let's go back to catalog. This one is great as well. Like, again, I really enjoy almost the feel of like you're looking at the whole flower, then you zoom in. Obviously, I know it's not the same flower, but then you kind of zoom in and then you're really cropping and get into the center of it, which I think really works very well. Now, looking at it, obviously, there is no sharpness on the center. The sharpness is more at the back, which if that was your intention, no problem there. On me, I would probably prefer if either both of them are sharp or maybe the sharpness was more on the center. But again, completely your artistic decision. Again, square crop, I think works really well on this. And I think really by framing in and cropping in like this, it really creates very mysterious composition, which I think works very well. Now, obviously, moving to the thistles, now just very quickly, let's have a look at it. We have the 3 different thistles, again, 3 different crops, 3 different framing. I think this one works really well. That little bit of purple help to it to stand out. The second one, cropping in, start to be almost at the point when it's a little bit overwhelming. There's a lots of texture on the same image. Again, the color helps to bring it out a little bit, but to that specifically to that subject, it starts to be a little bit busy. on the top of it with the green background. I think it's a lot happening there. So just be careful. The high frequency, especially on foreground elements or focal point, can be a little bit distracting sometimes. And this one is actually great. And the reason why this one works a little bit better is that the background is different color, it's much softer, and the way you capture it, it much more stand out from the image. So each of them different. Really enjoy them. I really like this one. I think that works really well, and I think it's very well put together. So Tony, well done on these. Nothing much I can add. Great editing. Keep an eye on the white balance with that green tint specifically, especially when you're capturing these type of plants or areas where there is lots of green. It really is very easy to get this green tint into the images, and it can be a little bit distracting. Other than that, great as always. Thank you again for sending your images over early. I was happy to review them for you, and I can't wait to see more images from you next week. So that's about it, folks, for this week. Thank you very much for joining us. Once again, sorry for the fact that it had to be pre-recorded, but don't worry, I will review all of your images next week on the 19th of December, 6 p.m. UK time. I will be here live on our YouTube channel, and we go through all the images, and then we talk about some news for 2024. We can just say goodbye to each other, wish each other happy holidays, and then get on with it. Folks, have a great evening. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you